Okay, now we are a month into the Reedsy writing course, and this past week was all about setting up the plot to your story. And again, I'm finding that I've done a lot of things correctly overall. Hello, I'm Mike with WriterSanctuary, and today I'm talking about sharing my experiences learning about plot development with the writing course from Reedsy. Now, the first day was all about story DNA. This involves the structure of a plot, such as the beginning, middle, and the end. Essentially breaks down into change, creating for both the plot and the main characters. And a way that Tom Bromley explained it was the plot's setup, confrontation, and resolution. Of course, this could also be the makeup of a scene within the plot. Day 2 focused on the scene and summary. This is where things lean heavily into the idea of show, don't tell. In essence, you're giving the reader enough detail for them to imagine what is going on, while letting their imagination fill in the blanks. I do this quite a bit. I don't detail every single scenery in the book, but I do think there are a few things that I could wind up fleshing out. This is because you can't show everything. You need to create a balance. And from what I've learned on this particular day, the opening of Kingmaker is a great example. So I am relatively proud of that fact, mostly because of how I do start off the book in the first couple of paragraphs. But if you'd like to know what I'm talking about, you'd have to buy the book. On the third day, we learned about revealing information. You don't want to reveal too much too soon, but you don't want to wait until too far late in the story to reveal certain parts of your plot. That's because people can wind up getting bored with what they're reading. It's all about creating a balance. Now when you info dump, it slows down the pace of the book. But if you don't offer enough detail, it could be confusing later on. So balance is essential throughout the entire length of your manuscript. Day 4 centered around flashbacks and how to use them in a story. Now, flashbacks can be helpful, but they will pause the story when someone's reading it. Now, for the most part, a flashback can be helpful to flesh out a character. You see that a lot in Stephen King's It, because for me, there's too many flashbacks and it gets a bit confusing at times. Nonetheless, they work better as quick snippets rather than hammering out 4 or 5 pages. Personally, I use flashbacks sparingly, and they only maybe last 2 or 3 sentences when appropriate, such as highlighting a certain point that just happened that is relevant to the sentence before it. Otherwise, most of my stories wind up being quite linear. Now on day 5, Tom Bromley talked about mystery, surprise, and suspense. Out of the entire week, this is probably one of my favorite videos that I watched in the Reedsy writing course. For instance, suspense is usually a shorter period of time in the plot while all delivering tension and then a release, such as a threat, or getting rid of a threat. Now, my favorite part of this lesson, though, was centered around more about the aspect of surprise. Now, surprise in a book is usually quite a long burn with something very unexpected at the end. It's all about misdirection, which I'm a huge fan of creating. Of course, I've talked about this before. I liked using misdirection, but I'm not to the extent of M. Night Shyamalan. Some of those were just freaking weird. At least mine are more realistic. But anyway, the impact of a surprise is all in setup throughout the entire story. Now, day 6 was more about author interviews like they normally are, but this one was more about plotting versus pantsing. Now, every author is different, and it was interesting to hear how much everyone differs from one another. Now, there is no right or wrong answer when deciding if you're going to be a plotter or a pantser. It all really comes down to what works best for you. Now, I recently uploaded a comparison video of plotting versus pantsing. You can click on that right over here. And there's pros and cons to both sides. It just really comes down to what works best for you and how you're able to focus on your book. Some people like me are plotters and have to have the entire thing sketched out, while other people can just jump on a keyboard and write by the seat of their pants. Now, if I'm doing a short story, like maybe 3,000 words, I can usually be a pantser with that. Just kind of crank it out real fast. But for the most part, for the longer books, I'm definitely a plotter because I will forget a lot of stuff. And there's some things in my book that I want to happen that I think about when I'm walking. And so I'll come in and make those notes. Otherwise, I'll forget. Well, what do you expect? I'm 47. Overall, it was quite an interesting week. It's still pretty cool that I found out that a lot of things I do in my books are similar to how authors create theirs. I did come across quite a few things that I will take into consideration for future books, though. As I said before, integrating the thoughts and processes of others only helps build onto my own style of writing. And I really wish I had a teleprompter so it doesn't look like I'm reading off the screen without looking at the camera. Maybe someday. Next week, we'll be looking at writing descriptions, which I think is going to be another great one that I'm looking forward to diving into. I did enjoy the plot week last week quite a bit. It was really neat to realize just how on track I was with everybody else. There are a few things I need to tweak and a few things I need to polish up on, but that's what this course is all about. But in my opinion, descriptions are a vital element that will make or break a book. Because if you go too far into the weeds, you're going to lose your audience, not enough information, and they're going to be confused. Like, you can build this entire elaborate world, but if you try to break down every single aspect of it, and it takes like 3 chapters to do so, they're going to get bored of it. I'm not saying that you can't build some elaborate world. I'm just saying that in your manuscript, you want to keep your audience engaged. It's the same thing with a blog post. You have a certain amount of time to keep somebody reading. If they get bored or decide, fuck it, they're going to miss out on it. They can get about 3 or 4 pages in your book and just give up. But anyway, I'm sure I'll get quite a bit of use out of the information next week, and I'm looking forward to it. Anywho, if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button for more videos about self-publishing, blogging, freelance writing, or anything else I cover. Hit the subscribe button. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. I think that's going to do it for me today. I'm going to get back to my book. I'll see you next time.